E3 Saxo Classic, Harold, Becker, Price. What other iterations of the name has this race had, Benji?
In my heart, it is always E3 Heidelberg.
Yeah, me too.
I just ruined
always
it.
call
E3
it that.
Heidelberg.
And that's when some of the beautiful additions were. And indeed, it starts and finishes in Harelbeke in Flanders. They do go into Wallonia for a couple of Ks. Just don't tell the Flemish fans. But we have quite a hard course because it's really flat for the first 90 Ks. And then almost, if I'm to believe Veloviewer, almost the same amount of climbing as the entirety of the Tour of Flanders, congested into 90 Ks more or less, with some long climbs, with some decisive ones. And that climb zone begins with the Canarieberg, out of the Kruisberg, about 100 Ks into the race, and Nochterberg. These are quite long climbs, and then it's the whole race. It really hinges every year on the being in position into the descent in the Kortekeer, and then on the Kortekeer, basically you can block it up. Then there's a really fast descent into the Tyenberg where you turn left, and the race explodes every year. We saw that with Quickstep 21, Van Aert 22, Van der Poel 23, and indeed Van der Poel 24, I think, or Pedersen 24. Any news pre-start, Benji?
Well, not necessarily pre-start, I think, but when it comes to the race itself, well, obviously, the pre-start news was a few days earlier. We discussed it in the Wednesday podcast about Catalonia, that Pogacar was not riding this race, so that influenced the race itself. And I'm not sure it influenced the first half of the race, but some stuff happened when the race went kicking on, because usually when it comes to E3, you just said it. It's kind of like a relatively relaxed race where there's a breakaway forming at the start, and then eventually it's all about that Kortekeer and Tyenberg. This time around, there was a something happening in the first half of the race. Early on, bit of crashes. There was a crash that involved multiple Quickstep riders abandoning, so that's unfortunate. And eventually, we had also a picture on social media reported that Wout van Aert had a mechanical at some point and was on a spare bike. And then the misinformation started. Because suddenly, I was looking at the Sportza-ticker, my friend, and the Sportza-ticker said, split in the peloton. I'm like, okay, split in the peloton. What can I expect from that? Is that because something happened? Some newspapers like Sportza were saying it was because of a crash. VTM wasn't necessarily saying it was because of a crash, so no clue what caused the split in the first place. I would guess it was a crash at this point, right?
It's like it's a beautiful way to watch races, what we've been doing lately. It's when you have PCS open, the live stats, another maybe First Cycling open. Luke's got the race radio in his ear. He's trying to communicate it. I got Core Voss, which is our photo provider on the podcast. No free plugs, but they have been for the last 5 years. Great service. Yeah. Core Voss, I'm refreshing the images because they put them up during the race. I even have Getty images open because they have different images, and we're trying to piece together this puzzle, Benji. That was the best part of the race for me.
To be honest, I was trying to puzzle it on Belgian media terms. I was trying to look at every Belgian media
Benji's
that had
on
a ticker.
Twitter. He's on Flemish Twitter, and he's texting his contacts, whoever, to find out what's going
Boots
on the ground.
Yeah. No, nonetheless, lots of misinformation, because at first it sounded like there was a first group and a second group, and in the second group was Wout van Aert. Okay, this is that situation. Now it changes because suddenly Van der Poel is also reported in the second group, so that changes things depending on where the rest of the Visma bike team is. Because hypothetically, if Jorgensen is in the first peloton and Van Aert and Van der Poel are in the second peloton, then there's a play to be made by Visma bike if they say to themselves, what if we take Wout van Aert out of the race to take Van der Poel out of the race by trying to make this first peloton work for Jorgensen? Then Jorgensen has to try and fight the non-aliens in Pedersen and Ganna compared to
even there.
Jorgensen and Van Aert having to do it to Van der Poel. At that point, it was reported that they were.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yes.
Because the ticker said that Ineos was spacing in Group 1 at that point, which that was also not really happening. So lots of misinformation here.
Yeah.
And then eventually we come to the point where the tickers also say that Visma bike is spacing in the first group. Potentially true. No clue. I honestly didn't know anymore what was happening, because then Ganna is said to be in Group 2, not in Group 1. everything became clear once the broadcast started, right?
Yeah, it was a crash that split the race. Nasty crash. Quicksteppers, in hospital. And Van der Poel said afterwards, that's according to Luke, listened to his interview, that some teams wanted to abuse it. And it was the motor of Visma Lisa Bike, FDJ with Olivier Legac and Benji. You can see why then Visma were pacing, because Jorgensen was the clear-cut favourite in that group. No Wellens, no Bora, no Pedersen, no, really of the second line favourites. It was really no Ganna. It was really third line guys. And Vermote was pacing with FDJ. Alpecin, though, had help from Bora because the whole Bora team missed it.
Yeah. We had the Wombat pacing in group 2 in the second peloton. I'll be honest, I was a bit shocked that the Wombat was signed up for this race, Sam Welsford, but he did his job, which was trying to help that second peloton go back to that first peloton. Now, we haven't spoken about the gaps here. The gaps were huge. There was a gap at a certain point of 3 minutes from this first peloton to the second peloton. And we're talking about the start of the race here. We're nowhere near the halfway point of this race yet. And yes, we see Alpecin pacing in that second group. The likes of Dillier, but honestly, half their team are rouleurs built for this, because at the end of the day, there's not that many riders that Alpecin can sign up for this race that will make it over the Tyenberg. They switched Vermeers in last minute, so that's a good change in my personal opinion. But we see Alpecin's team really pacing there. Bora joining, like you said, with Sam Welsford to try and get that engine rolling, trying to get that gap closed. Then there was a bit of a switch up when the broadcast started, where a breakaway started occurring at the front of the race. So from that first peloton, we saw 3 riders attack, including the likes of De Bond, Julius van den Berg, and Rory Townsend. And that was the declaration for me that the first peloton was never going to stay away, because you don't have riders getting off the front of your group with a proper gap of 30 seconds if the tempo is high enough to keep a peloton behind.
Exactly. And Alpecin actually had this under control. Well, at least when the broadcast started, they had this under control the whole way. They have it at 45 to 50 seconds, and then they stop using additional riders. They just put Dillier and maybe some Murissen. They don't use Riesebeck. They don't use Vermeersch, because they're like, we have this under control. We know that Van der Poel, actually, it's a good situation, even if this group's ahead. Say he has to drop it. He drops a bomber on the Canarieberg, and he's with some second tier favorites, and now the gap's at 20 seconds. They'll relay with him. He's suddenly in the group ahead. Happy days. So they actually had this under control all the way. Van Aert and Visma were kind of committing Vermote, but not Tosh van der Sande, who was also in Group 1, so they weren't pulling all out, probably because it was going to come back anyway, and still 4/7 of the team is in the group behind. Ineos the same. They were like, it's good we got 3 riders ahead. It's not great we got Ganna and Tarling behind. So they're like, they do nothing.
And I feel like the scenario ended up occurring for the next little bit of the race. We had a mechanical by Townsend in the front, and eventually he came back to the breakaway, but that breakaway was doomed. They were going to get caught by Peloton 1, and Peloton 2 was going to catch Peloton 1. And it really happened with about 110 kilometers to go, I feel like, on the Canarieberg. So Canarieberg and Oude Kruisberg are these first 2 notable climbs, I would classify them as. And the groups come together on the Canarieberg. And that's when we see a very well-timed attack of Louis Vervaeke trying to anticipate, but he gets no real separation. But immediately I saw that, okay, we're on the Canarieberg. Group Peloton 2 came back to Peloton 1, like I said, but the riders from Peloton 2 are still behind. They're in traffic right now on the Canarieberg. So while Vervaeke was attacking, we see Jorgensen moving up with another teammate to also try and get in a split on this climb. And then we see a move by Jorgensen himself with 110 kilometers to go, creating a small group. What's the plan here?
Yeah, I don't really know, because, the groups had just come back together. Kung's in his wheel, Lotto are closing it, so there's still a lot of guys. I don't think he had to spend it. It wasn't like a big bullet like his attack on the Waldenberg last year. Maybe try to stay ahead of the race. But the problem was it goes nowhere. Team riders market, and the problem is Van der Poel, well, at least for Visma, for Van der Poel, the race is over at this point. Van der Poel, after the Canarieberg, he is literally P10 or better for the rest of the run-in. His positioning's incredible. He's got Vermeersch with him a little bit, but there's some other counter moves. And yeah, Van der Poel's positioning is right there, and there's also Trek, and Wout van Aert is nowhere to be seen.
On the outer Kruisberg, we see Mathieu van der Poel coming to the front of the peloton in first position over the top of that climb on the cobbles, taking off his jacket or something, or arm warmers. I think Pedersen was doing arm warmers. Maybe Mathieu van der Poel was doing his actual jacket at that point in the race. Hands off the bars on the cobbles. I would never be able to do that, but how much of that is coming to the exact first position of the peloton to show everyone I'm still here?
I think so. I think Van der Poel would have been a little bit pissed off about how it played out after the crash. So I think it was like, I'm here, I'm not tired, you've achieved nothing, and I'm about to drop a bomber whenever I want.
That's true. But where is that going to happen? Because now we've got a bit of an in-between phase, I'd say, where the next 15 kilometers, 10 kilometers from Oude Kruisberg to the Knokteberg, peloton's kind of preparing. It's all setting up because you said it before we started this recap here, that you've got the Knokteberg, then the Korte Keer, then the Taaienberg. You want to be already in position on the Knokteberg, but on the Knokteberg, there's opportunities for others, and we've seen this play out in the last couple of years, where we've seen maybe a Lotto rider, Kampenaerts back in the day, I'm pretty sure 2-3 years ago, tried the same, where he tried to anticipate from the Knokteberg to hope to survive the Korte Keer, to hope to survive the Taaienberg, and be with the people from the peloton that attack on the Taaienberg. So that is the plan here. But this time around, we see two guys doing it well. The first one, Emir again from Cofidis. But Quickstep was on the move, right? Was it Casper Pedersen?
Casper Pedersen, I didn't know, because, half their team crashed out, and Louis Vervaeke had already attacked. So, he's with Emir again. Nicholas Markel tries with the picnic. He gets caught in a chasse patate. And, if you're Lotto, Intermarché, it's hard because there's no space. These are basically the only two guys that could just about squeeze through on that
Lotto was at the front.
Pardon?
With two riders.
Who?
Lotto did not jump. Two riders at the front.
Really?
On the Knokteberg. Yes.
Yeah. Then this is your meal ticket, really, to try and... Because you're not going to survive when the attacks go on Taaienberg. So this is the only way. But not everyone can be at the front. Thankfully, there were no crashes. The quick descents begins. So actually... We obviously didn't see the whole race. Maybe there were crashes. Obviously, in the Quickstep crashed earlier, but I'm talking in the big lead-outs in the middle phase of the race, there weren't huge crashes, which was good to see. And then we see the Korte Keer and Taaienberg, and we see Van Aert's been in good position, Benoist on a lead-out, and then just before the Korte Keer, he gets shuffled back way too far. Jorgensen's in good position, and then Ineos absolutely send it. Van der Poel squeezed himself up onto the train of Visma and then actually jumped in front, and he's positioned himself perfectly. Trekker in the middle. I don't know if it was Kirsch. I'm going to give credit to Alex Kirsch. He's really, really good in positioning. He positions Sturven and Pedersen perfectly, and there's no more space. There's literally no more space in the front 10 rows.
There's no more space, and I was also looking at Visma Leasebike because we've spoken about the positioning of Wout van Aert for the last 2 months, and I was trying to figure out, okay, is he over that at this E3? And based on what I saw before the Taaienberg, I would say no, because Visma Leasebike as a whole was not positioned perfectly. The team got squeezed back a little bit into P15 to 25, in between there, 3 riders of Visma, and Wout van Aert was there as a 4th rider. But then in the last kilometer towards the Taaienberg, Van Aert loses 8 to 10 positions towards the Taaienberg in corners left and right. And if that happens before the Taaienberg, you need to have majestic legs to make the cut at the top. And we've seen this so many times in the last couple of years where there's riders with good legs that don't make the cut here. I'm not going to say that Wout had good legs, by the way. Well, let's see if we get to that point later. But like you say, Little Trek is well positioned. Mathieu van der Poel is well positioned. Jorgensen, mediocre at best, I would say, when it comes to positioning. And we see the bomba, not from Mathieu van der Poel, but from Mes Pedersen on this climb, who moves past his leadouts at the foot of the climb, and does a Taaienberg from the front, and there's only one man that can follow in the wheel. It's Mathieu van der Poel.
And the Taaienberg's a really short, explosive effort. I think it's the best climb on this parkour for Pedersen. It's not that steep. It's kind of like the Gen Wevelgem climbs where he was really strong last year. And yet, if you take it on Van der Poel's not going to go solo from this point, and at least you guarantee you're going to create a selection, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ineos created the selection even before the Timeberg. Every single rider that was split in that lead out, race over. Like for even almost top 10s just about, I think.
Yeah.
You're gone. 84 Ks to go on that there. Someone dropped the wheel, gone. So that's how important positioning is in these classics. And yeah, Pedersen goes, Ganna just comes back. Van der Poel's obviously in the wheel. Jorgensen can't react. As I said, it's a sprinter's type climb. Jorgensen doesn't have the explosive.
You're back.
I'm back. And Ganna, Pedersen keeps pulling, by the way. Pedersen just rips this gap open. He doesn't look to anybody to create a split. He just was like 3 minutes all out. And then basically Ganna relays. That's the race. It's over.
That's a simplification, but it definitely is in a certain way at that point. Because you mentioned Jorgensen on the Timeberg. Like, I want to give him some credit, though, because he was not great positioned before the climb started. And the difference is that he had the level to make up his positions on the climb, where others might not be able to do that there. So that's why he gets into a group 2 after this Timeberg. But we've got the 3 off the front. We've got the 3 that are super strong. Mes Pedersen, Mathieu van der Poel, the strongest one of the 3 on paper, and Filippo Ganna. Those are the 3 we have of the front. Plus Emerick and then Casper Pedersen, who are ahead because they attacked on the Knokteberg before. So we've got a 5-man leading group after the Timeberg, which, fascinating situation. And the gaps behind them keep on growing. Because the second group includes the likes of...
The second group composition is very, very important here for this discussion.
Yes.
So we have Matteo Jorgensen, he's missed it, he's got to chase. Tim Wellens, UA also missed it, he's in the same boat as Jorgensen. They're just pulling. Kung, same boat, FDJ. Then you got Sturven of Little Trek, great classics rider, and Joshua Tarling, in one of Ineos' big prospects. And this is La Flamme Rouge posted this on Twitter, and I agree wholeheartedly. I could not believe when the gap stabilized. I don't mean straight away. Yeah. I think Ganna relaying because he doesn't know what Tarling is, but there's a long period that now elapses in the race where you can take stock of what the situation is. This group of Jorgensen, Kung, Sturven, Wellens, and Tarling, they get a big gap on the group behind. The group 3 Van Aert group, forget about them. Gone.
Yeah.
I could not believe Ganna relayed with Van der Poel and Pedersen with Tarling behind. Pedersen as well with Sturven behind. I was like, the only way you win this race is numerical advantage on Van der Poel and to play with that numerical advantage before Paterberg-Qualmont combination. If you go with him and relay with him, he will drop you. Like, what are we doing here?
I completely agree. And I think it's the way we need to look at it is the following. This is not a pre-planned strategy kind of vibe. This is a reaction on the ongoing situation in the race. Like when the group is created the first time around, then Ganna keeps on riding and Van der Poel rides and Mes Pedersen rides. I'm okay with it for a little bit. But then the gap is 1 minute to that Jorgensen group with Tarling and with Stuyven. And more importantly, the group of Wout van Aert is basically out of the race. And once that third group is out of the race, the go-to play becomes what you are saying. It becomes Ganna and Pedersen realize, okay, if we go to the Paterberg out of Quadramont combination, we are 95% likely getting dropped on that climb. So if that is the case, what is our biggest chance of winning this race?
Yeah, it's to have Tarling and to anticipate with Tarling ahead.
Yep.
And have Tarling go with a Sturven. And then you take those odds and then maybe Van der Poel has to... Van der Poel doesn't like those situations. He rarely gets put in those situations because, as I said, the La Flamme Rouge tweet was, Peter Sagan must be watching this race punching his TV because Peter Sagan in Classics, nobody worked with him, ever. If Quickstep had a rider with Sagan in a lead group and a Quickstepper somewhere behind, they never pulled. And Van der Poel in the Cobble Classics is far eclipsed what Peter Sagan does. And so I just don't. And listen, Ineos made the race. They were in position. Visma were nowhere. Visma had an absolute shocker today. But
Jorgensen was on point again.
But
He missed the split.
That doesn't mean Pippo Ganna should relay all out with Van der Poel and Pedersen when he has Josh Tarling behind. Play the card.
Yep. I agree. Because otherwise you're riding for a podium spot and you're Filippo Ganna, you're Mess Pedersen. You're at a point in your career where you're not riding for a podium spot in E3 Heidelberg. And the teams don't need UCI points. You're riding for the victory. Then the go-to play is waiting on the second group to come back. Yes, it's possible that you end up
You probably still
11th
lose.
and 10th. But you have a larger chance of winning. So anyway, we've gone through the discussion. That's our opinion. But they don't do that. Ganna and Pedersen keep on riding with Mathieu van der Poel. And the Paterberg is going closer, 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 closer. We get to the Paterberg. Mess Pedersen is actually the one pushing on that climb. And we see limited selectiveness in this group. Mathieu van der Poel is on the wheel, Ganna's on the wheel, and we see, first of all, Emmy de Gent getting on a proper gap. Then Casper Pedersen getting on a small gap. But they actually both return over the top of the Paterberg. So credits to them. They're not riding like pancakes here either. They were riding strongly here because they know that the longer they survive with these other riders, the more likely they are to stay ahead of everything that's behind and potentially get a top 10 out of it. But then the outer Quaremont comes. And who was the strongest on that climb, my friend? Hello?
I short-circuited like everybody else's legs. And basically Mathieu van der Poel just went to the front of the Quaremont and obliterated everybody. This race was literally almost rinse and repeat of last year. Except he did on the Paterberg last year. He goes clear. Pedersen's gap. Pedersen and Ganna then start chasing Van der Poel after the Quaremont. Just while Pedersen's at like 15 seconds and Ganna's at 24, 25 seconds. They hold it really stable. Don't be tricked. This happened last year. Remember, everyone like, Van Aert might be coming back. Van Aert might be coming back. No. What Van der Poel does is hold gap stable, keep it sort of 90% throttle, and then he goes to the Caramel Milk Street.
The what?
The Camelberg, what's it called?
The Karnemelkbeekstraat.
Yeah, Caramel Milk Street, and then he just fucking rinses them and goes all out and breaks their spirit. And that's exactly what happened last year. That's what happened this year. He takes it out to 22 seconds, and then the other two crack, and the race is gone. He starts his real solo after the Caramel Milk Street. In theory,
So, Karnemelkbeekstraat means Buttermilk Creek Street.
oh, it actually means something close. Okay. Buttermenthol Street. So he's in theory, you got Ganna, 1 hour TT specialist. Pedersen as well, good TT rider, 30 Ks of flat. And then, I think Pedersen should have waited for Ganna before the Caramel Milk Street, like he really should have. That was his only chance. But the reality is Van der Poel's way, way stronger, and he rips this gap open, and he just keeps taking the gap to the finish. It's kind of like the solo last year. And he wins by 1 minute and 7 over Pedersen. Ganna cracks. He goes to 2:05. And in the group behind, we don't have so many images. We see that Tarling was dropped on Paterberg after the Jorgensen acceleration. Kung, Trentin, Vellens, and Sturven, who's not pulling, they get across to Emmy de Gent and Casper Pedersen right near the finish. And they get together. They start attacking each other, and then Casper Pedersen for Soudal Quickstep. No way they thought they could have got a top 5 today. No way.
No way.
He wins the sprint behind for 4th, Sturven 5th, Kung 6th, Emmy de Gent 7th, Vellens 8th, Jorgensen 9th, and Mike Turnison wins the big bunch sprint, which is only 11 seconds behind, for 10th.
Now, I had boots on the ground on the outer Quaremont, my friend. We spoke about Van Aert missing the split on the Tyenberg and basically being in Narnia for the rest of the race, and I have some intel on what happened in the Narnia group because of at Jarne April on Twitter. His mother was on the outer Quaremont and saw Wout van Aert and Florian van Meers dropping everyone else in that group. Is that meaningful? Because actually, Wout van Aert mentions it in his post-race interview where he says, on the outer Quaremont, I did get away with Florian van Meers, but no one saw it because it happened out outside. Wout thinks it's valuable, so do we think it's valuable?
No. Florian van Meers should have been asked this year.
Okay.
So,
because I've been hammering the positioning as an issue for Wout van Aert. Do we conclude from today also that the legs are also a problem?
yeah, because probably he then bridges to the Jorgensen group straight after. Because he wasn't in that bad a position, Benji, like on Timeberg. Like we're not actually. He wasn't in Narnia. He was okay.
He was
there was a
10
split.
positions behind Jorgensen.
Yeah, but he wasn't P100. It wasn't like
No,
Omloop
no.
where he started, in P150 or something.
But it's a Timeberg, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
P30 or
But
gone.
Benji, he didn't have a gap after Timeberg from other riders.
Yes, correct.
So in theory, on Timeberg, you gap every one of the other schmucks you're in the split with, and you get across to Jorgensen.
Max. Yeah.
But that didn't happen.
I agree.
So
Jorgensen had the legs to make up for his mediocre position and still get into Group 2. And Wout van Aert wasn't able to do that, is what you're saying.
I mean, Prime Van Aert in Jorgensen's position would have followed because, as I said, it's like a sprinter's sort of climb. But he wasn't. And yeah, positioning really matters. Tosh van der Sande was good. But yeah, as I said, the Timeberg, this race really reminds me of Roubaix the last few years. Basically, there's a lot of sort of stuff happening before the Arenberg. In the end, it amounts to nothing and is not relevant. Then there's one huge moment in the race where you either make it or you don't. And that's the Timeberg here, or Arenberg and Roubaix. If you make it, which Amy de Gent and Casper Pedersen did, if you make it, the race actually becomes easy.
Like short bucks.
No offense to Casper Pedersen and Amy de Gent, but they got to ride with the big guns for a long time for a reason.
Yes.
And then, yeah, if you make it, you're guaranteed a good result. If you don't make it, you're guaranteed you're out of the race.
I do like it. I like the E3 parkour. It's like, it's a little bit unique in that sense when it comes to these one-day classics. I know every single Belgian classic looks the same, blah, blah, blah. Chat GPT classics, no. E3 is different for me, where you've got the run-up to the Timeberg, which to me is like, to everyone is the essential spot when it comes to E3. Then you've got the zone in between, whereas anticipation might be possible depending on how large the group is that forms on the Timeberg. And then after that, you've got the Patrick out of Quaremont combination, which is not the same combination as the Tour of Flanders, but it's also not as hard as 3 times the combination that's in the Tour of Flanders. But then you have the flat section at the end, which might be just a little bit too long for me, because I gotta say the last 10Ks of this race was boring.
Yeah, I mean, I really got to say, when I saw them relaying with Van der Poel, I was like, this race is over. Like, what?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, did you not watch the Cipressa last week? Or every other Cobble Classic? Like, the only guy who can follow it, drop him is Poggy.
Exactly. The only rider that can 1v1 Mathieu van der Poel in these classics is, maybe outside of Paris-Roubaix, Pogacar. Because in Paris-Roubaix, I don't necessarily believe he can, but I guess we'll see next week.
I mean, Benji, in Paris-Roubaix last year, he was in a group with Mads Pedersen and he took it to put 3 minutes on them.
Yeah, I'm talking Pogacar versus Van der Poel.
Oh,
I don't think Pogacar can do it at Roubaix, a 1v1 against Van der Poel. But at RVV, I believe it.
Yeah, RVV, of course. And that just goes to show, like, once it gets hard in these hills, like, Van der Poel and Pogacar, they can basically ride the final, like, 3 minutes faster than everybody. It's fucked.
Yeah, but
Van der Poel gives the illusion, like, he gives the illusion that he's, like, he's not going full throttle, and then he's just Quaremont, boom, see you, like.
About a week ago, I think after MSR, we spoke about, does this race make it more or less likely for you that Pogacar beats Van der Poel in RVV? I'm going to ask that question again. Van der Poel was impressive today.
Impressive.
We didn't see Pogacar today. I believe Pogacar would have been able to follow Van der Poel, but not drop him on today's parkour. That's my belief.
Yeah.
But I do believe still that Pogacar can drop Van der Poel at the Tour of Flanders. Or are we... Because, like, the way I see it is that 2 years ago, 2 years ago, Pogacar won RVV by dropping Van der Poel. But since then, Pogacar has grown, notably, especially when it comes to like the longer efforts, which is the Oude Quaremont in the parkour of the Tour of Flanders. But I feel like Van der Poel has also grown in the last 2 years, especially last year. And this year, he's also good at the race he needs to be good at so far. But the problem is, once you're dropped, the gap is likely to expand, you know? So for me, it's all about whether he can hold on out of Quaremont. And I still give the advantage to Pogacar.
Yeah, the multiple times out of Qualmont is in the favor of Pogacar, but Van der Poel does look really, really good, of course, and
Yes.
he has the trump card of the sprint. And because before, maybe in 2021, you think, okay, Poggy has a 20% chance in the sprint. That chance now is 0 in the
Correct.
sprint. Like, really, the difference seems to be massive in the sprint now. So Pogacar has to win solo to win Flanders, which he, of course, is capable of doing. Any other news? Yeah, but Van der Poel, Benji, I mean, Alpecin closed the dangerous situation. He was then positioned into Tijnberg. I think he kind of did that himself, to be honest, and then he sorted it out. So there's not much more to say on Van der Poel. Alpecin, Trek looked good and strong. Pedersen, a good result. He's certainly in better shape than when he was a bit sick in San Remo, I think. Ganna still very strong. Is this his best result in a Belgian Classic?
Yes, because Roubaix is not in Belgium yet. We haven't annexed that yet. And I think he got top 10 in E3 2 years ago?
Yeah, top 10 in E3 2 years ago. So he is looking better, Ganna. He's looking good for Roubaix because he was only 6th in Roubaix, and Roubaix should suit him more than this.
But I have less belief in Ganna podium for RVV than I had yesterday.
I don't think he's doing it.
He's not on the parkour, but they've changed it. He's not on the start list, but last minute they put him on the start list of E3 as well. So I'm just hoping that he shows up at this point. But I am confident like you in Roubaix.
I guess the other storyline, Benji, is kind of the Visma Lisa bike were not in the race at all. Just chased Tijnberg and then gone. And so in the end, positioning matters. And if you're not in position, you can't be in the race.
Correct. And to be honest, before this race, when I looked at E3 and Tour of Flanders, my take was Wout van Aert has maybe a chance to compete in E3, but I don't necessarily believe in the Tour of Flanders because of the fact that I feel like it fits better for Pogacar and even for Mathieu van der Poel over Wout van Aert, that parkour. And at the end of the day, I feel like today it made me a little bit more worried because of the fact that I have extra confirmation on the positioning being an issue for him,
Yeah, I think as well with, it's not just him. Van Baarle wasn't in position, Benoit's not in position, although he tried to lead it out. So it's there's no block of riders like Trek or Ineos. Like what Turner did today with the lead out was incredible. Affini wasn't able to do that. So if 5 of the, because who's best in position? Who was actually really good in position today? Tosh van der Sande.
Oh.
Tosh van der Sande was the first Visma rider into the Tijnberg. Yeah. And if 5 of 7 riders are not in the front 10 rows, or then when it kicks off, like on Qualmont, if you're not in position on second time Qualmont and Pog launches with Van der Poel on the wheel and say Ganna follows, that's it.
That is it.
So,
now,
it doesn't matter what shape you're in. It really doesn't matter.
But I'm still of the opinion that Jorgensen, well, it's pretty obvious, right? Jorgensen's been super impressive throughout the classics. Today he wasn't in the fast split, but he was still the most impressive rider on Visma Lisa bike. And I like that he's given co-leadership because honestly...
Right, he's the best rider on the team.
Yeah, he's the best rider. Arguably, Belgians are going to kill me for this, but based on what you saw this year so far, you would argue that in teams where hierarchy doesn't matter, Wout van Aert would be in a domestique role at some point.
That doesn't work either because let's also be real. Jorgensen didn't win the bunch sprint for 4th either.
Yeah, but he can't sprint as much as Pedersen and so forth.
Yeah, but he was fucked at the finish. Of course, he did more work, but it's not like he's going to do it himself.
Yeah,
in RVV. So no, you still need Van.
You need the multi-leader strategy.
Van Aert. You need Van Aert to be on to have a chance of a good result.
You need that, but I feel like in a race situation, I still feel like Jorgensen is more likely to fall into a domestique role because of a situation than Wout van Aert would. Because, for example, if we get over if the group includes Wout van Aert for a second, hypothetically, do you reckon Jorgensen and Wout van Aert equally relay in that group?
I'm not sure. Probably in Omloop, the answer is no. In Omloop, when Wellens attacked before the Bolsberg, it was Jorgensen shutting him down.
So I would expect the same scenario to happen here, because also partially because it's flat finish. But
what about Matthew Brennan?
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Catalunya for a second.
Are we moving to Catalunya? But yeah, it's like, it's very clear to me that RVV, okay, maybe Poggi doesn't win by a minute anymore, but it's really Pogacar and Van der Poel. Those two are streets ahead of the rest. Volta Catalunya, Benji. Am I allowed to talk about it?
Wait. Catalunya, you're allowed to talk about. That's part of our recaps. Copia Bartali, I might muffle you for that, depending on how long you keep Catalunya. But I first want to mention last minute for a second here. The fact that Pedersen and Ghana have realized now that if they relay with Mathieu van der Poel, this happens. Do you think that will change their strategy for RVV? Because they need to be ahead of Van der Poel when shit hits the fan. Ahead of Pogacar when shit hits the fan.
Like, Pedersen rode, like in last year or the year before in RVV, he anticipated and got a great situation because he didn't want to be outnumbered. But then, Benji, it's a monument. What if Ghana relays and you then guarantee a podium in a monument?
Yeah, but
it's a big result. And what? I can understand the temptation to pull. I can understand it because if you don't have a teammate behind, you should pull. Because if you don't have a teammate behind, MVDP won't just pull with you in his wheel. MVDP will just stop. The groups will come back. He'll just drop a bomb on the next hill, and then you'll be dropped.
Yeah, but I'm saying they can't wait in the first place to be with them, to have to relay with them. They need to be ahead when we arrive at second out of Quaremont. Molenberg, that's a launching point, for example. But are we going into RVV preview territories that we are not allowed to jump into yet?
I'm not allowed to jump into. Okay, I'm allowed to talk about Volta Catalunya. Quite an exciting finish. Actually, there was heavy winds to the point where a couple of descents at the start of the stage were neutralized completely. And indeed, it was a shortened stage, 165 kilometers long. And there was crosswinds beginning at about 20 kilometers when they turned right. Ineos and Visma, I think mainly Ineos, actually. Ineos split it. They have, they're behind on GC. They got Axel Laurent, Geraint Thomas's magic in the crosswinds. And so it was split. The usual suspects missed it. Leonard Van Eetvelt comes to Spain. He thought he could escape the crosswinds, which did him in UAE Tour. He misses it. Riccitello misses it. Fanpei misses it. Basically, every slender man misses it, except Simon Yates, Bernal, Ayuso, Roglic, Enrique Mas is there. Movistar very, very strong. Hessman's pulling. They got numbers. And so these crosswind splits, when they're close to the finish, that's when they have the huge gaps. Because everyone just rides full to the finish. And we then have a sprint where Geraint Thomas leads out Axel Laurent. Laurent's launches way too early. We've got Bittner there, Vandenberg, Corbin Strong, Godon, Del Grosso. So actually most of the sprinters kind of made it who are still in the race because Groves abandoned with a knee issue, I think. And Matthew Brennan comes out of the wheel, not boxed in, and he wins easily.
Hot take. Controversial to say about a 19-year-old. He should always win that sprint in that group against those competitors.
I would have been shocked if he didn't,
He spotted him the Tour Down Under stage against better sprinters. His first stage here was super impressive. Yes, he was cutting down young French 19-year-olds in the Grand Prix de Villiers, de Lille, de whatever, a couple of weeks ago. But Matthew Brennan, with his performances and his skill, should always win the sprint against these riders. Because I'm trying to lay the tears in my sprinters right now. To me, Brennan is on at least the Bauhaus level of sprint, but more versatile.
Rider. Yeah. I would say Brennan is...
What is Brennan?
What is Matthew Brennan?
Because he's very versatile.
He's the savior. He's a savior.
For Visma Lisa bike today, that's for sure.
Visma Lisa Brit this week.
Lisa Brit.
Saviors. But yeah, Brennan, I mean, I want to see him in the classics more. Robert De Croo said yesterday he can't do any more .2 races. I think that's fair enough. I think that'd be a bit mean. But yeah, it was an exciting finish and good to see Bernal and Ineos riding aggressively. Laurence just a little bit unlucky or jumped too early. And big GC day tomorrow. Indeed, like guys like Van Eytveld, Riccitello, Lopez, Lesurf, other Lopez lost a lot of time, and tomorrow's a really hard stage.
Van Eytveld also lost time in the echelons today, which means that would be the second time in a month and a half that he loses a notable amount of time in echelons where he could have potentially podiumed a 1 week race in World Tour. So that's a real problem for Van Eytveld.
Tomorrow's a really, really hard stage. They do the Col de la Pradelle. It's like 15k, 7%, but it's fake news climb. The last 5.5ks are 11%. Really, really hard. Then there's a step descent towards the Collada de Santa Isidre, which is 5ks, 8.8%, which is about 30ks from the finish to crest. And then they roll along some short, sharp hills towards Berga, and then go up the Queralt climb, 6ks, 7.5%. Steeper, it's pretty irregular, but it's still steep in parts. Ayuso's 1 second ahead of Roglic on GC because of a bonus sprint. Is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. We've seen, I think, the stage before we saw Roglic take time at a bonus second sprint, and therefore with the stage when he had, he equalized himself with Ayuso, and because of reasons, he was then, I think, stage positions, maybe the sum of it, he was then above Roglic, even though they were on the same time. But now Ayuso has gotten a second and an intermediate sprint, so that brings him above Roglic again. And bonus seconds might matter, but with tomorrow's stage, like the way you presented it, is the leader's jersey among Ayuso's shoulders potentially a poisoned gift? As in, being leader automatically makes you slightly more defensive. And I think if you ride tomorrow defensively, there's a notable chance Roglic beats you and takes bonus seconds and passes you in GC.
I disagree. That Bora team is ass. And if you're UAE and you pace and you lose like they did on the yesterday stage, to me that's insanity. I would say good luck. I would let a big break go. Big break, let it take all the time.
Yeah.
And then on Col de la
bonus
Pradelle,
seconds.
I'll give it a bit of gas with Adam Yates, drop all their domestiques except Pellizzari, and then chill.
There's a bonus second sprint 5.5k into the race?
Yeah, there was the one yesterday and today. They're really early. The problem is, Benji, if you don't take more time and win tomorrow, if you're Ayuso, you risk losing the race on Sunday if Roglic nails you in the Barcelona sprint, which he's more than capable of doing.
Yeah.
I think UAE are going to go all out for the stage win.
I think so too. I would like to see it, and I think I'm not necessarily agreeing. I don't like the defensive strategy. I think it's too risky with stage 7. So I'm saying UAE is going to hard pace Pradelle, is going to hard pace the bottom of Collada de Sant Isidre, and Ayuso is going to attack there, because I don't think he's going to attack on Pradelle. That's too early in the stage, and Isidre is more likely as a consequence of that. And if he can't drop Roglic there, then might as well sit up and try to beat him in the sprint, you know?
Yeah. Going to be an interesting stage to watch. I think it's going to be, what other racing is on tomorrow? The finish of Coppi, but Catalonia will be the main order of the day, the big GC stage, and then probably there'll be gaps which cannot be overturned on the Barcelona stage, but you never know. If they're close, maybe there still is, and then we see big attacks on Sunday early afternoon in Barcelona.
Yes, that is true.
Anything else, Benji?
Is that where you want to leave it?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to talk about Coppi. I'm not allowed to talk about Alentejo, Olympia's Tour, Saxo Classic Juniors, the Princess Maha Chakri Sirind Horns Cup Tour of Thailand.
That one you can talk about. I'll allow it. Go on. 5-minute recap.
I'm not talking. I don't know what to say about it. I didn't think you'd call me on it. I've not watched it. I just saw Alexander Solby, who has the scariest profile picture I've ever seen on PCS. He's won about 3 stages, so good on him. The leaning star.
Did you see away from Pelot?
Yep. Anything change for Gent Wevelgem? Like, nothing changes to me.
Well, Van der Poel's not even there. Right?
Exactly. I think Pedersen's favorite, right?
I disagree. I think it's going to be a sprint.
Because he's the only attacker, and like there's about 12 teams that will ride
And
around
Milan's
behind
there
him.
too.
Yeah.
So isn't Pedersen the guy you send to try and respond to people that attack?
I think he's
but
going
you
to
don't
go
ride
ham.
with them?
I think because he's not going to wait to just do a lead out for Milan.
Well, I'm sorry, but yeah, to be honest, against Tim Melier and Philipsen, you want to make the race a little bit harder as well, you know? Because Melier, there's a chance that he drops on the hills if you make it harder. Jasper Philipsen is going to survive the hills, so that you're going to have to deal with in the sprint. So I expect him to also ride if he attacks or if other people attack.
One man's winning Wevelgem. It's Jordi Meus.
I disagree.
Jordi Meus got in the bag. Won the bunch sprint last year, and I think the sprinters will bring it back for him.
I think Philipsen wins.
It should be a Belgian.
It's the ultimate
He just
army
crashed.
of Urukai around him.
Yeah, his sprint's not moving me. Philipsen's sprint.
Did it in Kuurne.
He did. He did. But to be honest, they weren't the same level of sprinters there. Milan was there. Yeah, you're right. Peer group.
They were badly positioned.
Yeah, and Alpecin will have the big lead out. You're right. Okay. I got Meus, Benji's got Philipsen. Hope you enjoyed the recap of E3 Saxo Classic Harelbeke. And the next pod we'll see you is on Sunday afternoon. Until then, ciao, ciao.